I'm super excited about the power of these cover crops and their ability to really build this soil up. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead, and I want to give you an update on a few things that we've been working on here over at this demonstration site. First off, remember the berry patch or the free trees that we talked about. As you'll see, squirrels have been dining like crazy. Now it's still April and pretty cold outside. All the nuts that are on the surface here are going to be probably squirrel food, but I see a few things here and there starting to sprout. That's pretty good. I brought some willows out of the greenhouse. So here's another project we're looking at. This is going to be part of an erosion project. You can see these willows probably got a little shocked being out here in the cold weather, but we've got some different types of aquatic plants and types of willows. One of the problems about putting out pots in a field like this is that they're going to get hot and cold, and they could have could mess up the growth. Let's talk a little bit about the cut flowers. And folks, I'm going to cover this really quickly here today because I got some work to do. But you can see the cut flowers are starting to come through. This particular area, I used the flail mower to go over and mulch around these beautiful cut flower beds. You can see, I want to be careful walking around here. You can see some of the variety of cut flowers here. But as you can see is that after the flail mower chopped down the bulk of the materials, we have this giant flush of clover. Now, why am I so excited about the clover? Because clover is a nitrogen fixing plant that is going to feed the soil. And we, again, don't have a lot of weeds or anything out here, but we have a lot of clover and a lot of the wildflowers and a lot of these bulbed flowers. Now, I can see where the bulb flowers are in the beds. So what I can come back here is actually do some higher density planting while then mulching and kind of thickening this up. I also see some hairy vetch in there. That is another nitrogen fixing plant. Again, we want low inputs, high outputs. And you can see there's a plant here, there's a plant there, and so this is kind of a double reach bed. It's so exciting because you can also see the cut grasses, because it looked pretty ugly. The cut grasses here on the ground are actually mulching the soil, which is helping us build up the organic matter and also prevent erosion. I still want to come through here and pick up some of these rocks, and I actually stack all these rocks around the corner posts. But can you see how nice this is? Now this area over here, I didn't flail mow. It doesn't have any flowers in it, but you can see what it might look like if it was left alone or flail mowed infrequently. And then over here you can see what it looks like with our rows of not wildflowers, our rows of different types of cut flowers. What else do we have going on here? Well, we're going to walk across and you can see I'm walking in a pathway. Big giant double reach beds for the wildflowers, or for the bulb flowers, because we want to be able to harvest them and cut them off and grow them back. But I'm walking across here. Look at this area right here. This is the cover crop that is giving us biomass. I can see some more rocks. That is giving us biomass as well as nutrients. So you can see again the clover and the peas and the hairy vetch, all very exciting in here. And again, this is what I'm doing with the rocks, is I put them right down here because I don't want to have to deal with those in the garden. Now the up top here is still cover crop, and you can see how beautiful that cover crop is, but the level areas are just exploding with biomass. That biomass, just like in the cut flower bed, will get flail mowed, and it becomes a mulch to protect the soil. Now, on some of these beds, we're actually going to do a light tillage just to terminate the crop, because we're going to be doing higher density corn and Three Sisters, that kind of thing. And you might notice there's a strip in the middle that nothing's really growing on. That is actually an access path, so we can push a wheelbarrow down across a level area rather than having these hills and slopes. Now, I don't see as many wildflowers coming up here, but I can see that the manures that we spread out here, again, I want to touch on that fertilizer video. The manures we spread out in here are actually somewhat incorporated, somewhat spread out. Let's look at another field here. We're going to move up this way. Look at this across the way. All of this beautiful biomass growing. Now again, we grow the cover crops on these beds to get us some root mass to hold the soil in place, to feed the soil, not only with organic material, but to feed the soil with our clover and our nitrogen fixing plants and the minerals that are pulled up from deep rooted plants. And then we cut it with the flail mower. Of course, you can cut it with a scythe. Up top, there's a place where some of it was scythed. But again, it gives us great biomass. And by the way, these pea shoots are so tasty. So again, there's a wildflower strip in there. You can see more manures that were thrown around. But we got green manure. Look at all this green manure. It's beautiful. Again, we're not growing plants as much as we're feeding the soil. I'm going to do a quick little walk here to show you these paths. And you can see these paths at the top of the slope or at the top of the level terrace are actually a bit more compacted because that's the only place that we walk on these permanent raised beds. Now, when I flail mow all this material, it's going to add, acres of, this is something that's important to understand. Every inch of biomass growing above the soil, when cut, becomes an equal number of square feet in material. So if it's an inch by 1 square foot, 2 inches by 1 square foot, let's show you how deep this is. Okay, here we go. Look at this. All of that abundance, all of that material breaks down to give us this great blanket of material that protects our soil. Now, this soil, when we originally started, was basically a field, and it was full of different types of grasses, and it was full of mostly Virginia clay. And now we have this, still got a Virginia clay, but look at that little bit of dark hue that's coming to it. And basically, we're not going to disturb that. We're not using deep tillage. We're just basically using tillage to level some of the beds out and to basically like an inch or two to terminate the crops as we get moving along. And then also before we prepare for new crops. And you can see that the manures I put on here, and I've covered this whole area with manure. The manures have been incorporated by the cover crop growing up around it. Now, there are areas where there is more straw or more mulch, and as you can see, the grass-fed system doesn't require a bunch of weeding. And you might be saying, Justin, well, you've incorporated cover crops. Won't I have to weed the cover crop? Again, we're going to flail mow it, which cuts it into small, tiny pieces, and then we're going to not incorporate it into the soil, but we're going to terminate the crop by a very shallow tillage. And that very shallow tillage is going to allow us to get plants in place immediately. And then we're going to mulch around that with straw, which we could cut elsewhere on the property. You can see there's some acres out there to cut straw to feed animals and such. But we're getting our carbon added to the soil in numerous different ways. And just hold on to the camera there, folks. Hold on to the camera. I hope you're taking notes. Hold on, we're getting around the corner here. You can see the grass changes. We're back on the road, but we're actually returning that carbon through animal manures, rabbit manures, cow manure, and such. And this material is being incorporated into our idle fields. And you can see how dense the cover crop is where we have that nutrient going in. And with all the stuff that's going on in Russia and Ukraine, with all the stuff with the availability of fertilizer, we have eliminated the need of outside fertilization. We have even allowed some of the nitrogen fixing trees and there's another video about this. That's why you need to like and subscribe to the channel. But there's a number of nitrogen fixing trees that are ultimately feeding the soil as well, but we're cutting them, we're pollarding them or coppicing them accordingly in order to provide some protection for numerous fruit trees that are out here, as well as to feed the soil. And so under here, we're going to do a little simulated food forest. And down on this side, and I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag, we're going to have a small little food forest here to show you that even in a few 100 square feet, you can have a food forest from start to finish. In fact, if you've got nuisance trees, we can show you how to turn those nuisance trees into abundance, into a sustainable homestead. Now, the key that we're looking at here as we come across is that we're not just randomly doing this. We actually have input cycles. We have planting schedules. We have a whole farm design. And if you'd like to learn more about how that works, please ask your questions in the comments below or visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org. And what you're seeing here, again, is many cubic yards of biomass that's grown on site. So I know a lot of you guys are excited about composting. Composting is great, but when you're working with an acre farm or a giant market garden or a larger area, it's better to compost on the beds. We want maximum biological activity on the beds themselves. We've got contour paths to slow and spread water. We've got recycling of animal manures and organic waste. I just brought some things out of the greenhouse that were plants that died in the greenhouse. We take that extra soil, we spread it on the beds. We are rolling around the nutrients, capturing it in the soil vitality, and growing in abundance, and you can too. This is not difficult to do when you understand how the systems stack. There's a trainer here that can train you and teach you, and we hold classes here to help you learn how this works so that you can go from basically what was like this. You see this clay? That's not ideal. You don't even want to run animals on it. Into this abundance, which is a high organic soil load. So we got a lot of organic material in the soil that holds moisture. We're protecting and growing the soil. We are cultivating the foods that we desire, and even using the biomass of cover crops to choke out the things that we don't desire. This is a powerful approach that you must learn. I'm not about scaring people and things, but ultimately, when the food system fails, you got to have at least this at a small scale. You can do it like the tree garden over there that's just 12 by 12. You can do it in this area is about 2 acres, got probably about an acre in coverage, and I'm already looking at additional paddocks that we can grow out. Now again, we used a paddock system here so we can show you multiple different ways of doing this, because not one way works best on your property. Again, we're in different climates. It's April right now. It's about 50, 60 degrees outside. And this method, you can see even on this property, works better in some places than it does in others. So you can see that bright green strip in there tells me there's high fertility in there. Over here on the compacted area, it's telling me there's more compacted soil. Now, because these are walkways, we know why it's more compact. We're storing water there, and then we're walking on those areas. But again, can you see how this can be done for yourself? How you can do this on a small acreage or a large acreage. Oh, and I promised you I'd show you where it was scythed out. Scott just couldn't resist, and he scythed out one area because the grass is getting taller and it's getting beautiful. Look at that grass. All of that is nutrients. It's all going to feed the plants. Look at this. So scythed out, laying on the bed, you end up with large bulk. So I want to tie this back into the grass-fed garden. All this is scythed out. Look at this biomass on here. And then when we go underneath of it, we get to see this rich soil starting to build up here. Now this is only a couple years in the making, and I'm pulling out some globs. Let me just pull out a glob there. Look at that. It went from red clay, and you saw the red clay down there near the path. It went from red clay to root full and browning organic matter in that clay, in that soil, really building up that value. Now, could we do more? We certainly could, but at this scale, you have to measure labor, you have to measure other things, and that's what we can help you with. There are consulting services available. I know a lot of you folks have been writing and saying, look, you've got a 5-acre garden, you've got a 3-acre lot, you've got animals, you don't have animals. We can help you devise a plan that's going to give you both the beauty and abundance of nature. So you can see again, more bulbed flowers, some wildflowers in here. We even got some aquatic systems going, but we got what's a broad acre farm. So any one of these paddock areas could be your backyard, and it could be growing in abundance. Now, do we have brassicas out here? Because it's a little cool. Brassicas, cabbages, they might do okay. We have some, but I haven't ran across many because I've probably been eating most of them. But we could have done more of that. I think in this area here, or the next down, there's some onions. You know, over in this section, there's some potatoes I never even harvested the first time. They were probably gonna come up. So are we doing this perfectly? No, but as you can see, with the techniques and methods that we teach, you're able to consistently grow large volumes of food with minimal inputs. And because you have minimal inputs, you're able to grow in abundance no matter what the economic situation is, no matter what the political situation is. If you've got a piece of land at an acre or more, you can have more food to feed your family. Now, can you do it on less? Yes, but there's gardening channels that'll tell you about raised bed gardening, square foot gardening. This is permaculture, permanent agriculture designed to provide abundance, sustain your home and your family for years to come. Now, do we put a lot of work into this? Sometimes, but most of the time we are harvesting. Most of the time we're just basically moving around resources, and this is something that you can do easily. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I want to thank you for taking along this journey. Put in your comments below about questions you might have. Also, experiences about yourself. I know a lot of folks out there have done something like this and they find it works very well, and they just want to work on the nuances a little bit. And so we have training and volunteer opportunities at this particular property and other properties around the region that'll help you get the practical implementation. You might have questions about types of cover crop. You might have questions about the terracing method that we're using here. You might have questions for the adaptability to your own climate. We're in a temperate climate, and what we've done is select plants accordingly. Oh, there's some brassicas right there. They won't be there long. I'll probably go take those home and eat them. Anyway, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Thank you so much for spending time with me right now. With your questions, visit www.prosperityhomestead.org. I'd like to introduce you to a number of resources, so just go to the contact page and ask your question. Thanks for watching. We help homeowners, property owners, improve their small farm, homestead, or estate.